Hello, everybody. I'm Alan Arkatov, the Katzman Chair for Education Innovation and Director of Center Edge. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm honored to serve on the LA's Best Advisory Board, and I'm thrilled to see so many fellow board members here this evening. Your presence and support illustrate our engaged LA's Best community, complete with representation from the public and private sectors. I see many familiar faces and potential new partners, too. All of us in this room have the collective power to influence LA by partnering with LA's Best. Together, we can support working families struggling with unjust systemic socioeconomic conditions, many exacerbated by the pandemic. It's a real joy when one personally sees the fruits of LA's Best. For me personally, it's captured in John Mendoza, who currently just joined our center, Center Edge, and 15 years ago or so was a proud LA's Best student. Welcome, John. Let's give him a hand. He's also a graduate student here, so for our dean, that's that added revenue and added knowledge in our base. So we're really. I think you'll be inspired this evening by the discussion we're going to have with LA's Best President, David P. Anderson, who goes by Anderson. Where's Anderson? There he is. So he goes by Anderson, and all I could think of whenever I say that to him is The Matrix. For those of you that are Matrix fans, right? Mr. Anderson. But he doesn't go by Mr. Anderson. He just goes by Anderson. So want the etiquette to be clear for the evening with the mayor in attendance. So following the talk, we'll have a great discussion and then back to enjoying each other this evening. Our esteemed panel will discuss the importance of after school for young students, LA's Best workforce development, and the unique partnership with the public and private sectors that fuel LA's Best impact and scale, this year reaching more than 200 elementary schools. I don't need to tell you how challenging these times are. Without a doubt, we're at a societal inflection point, and making a tangible difference for our children, who are the custodians of our city's future, is what brings us together in support of LA's Best. Before we kick off this discussion, we are honored to have one of LA's Best steadfast champions join us, Mayor Eric Garcetti, who has helped ensure that children who need a safe and educational place to be after school and during the summer have the opportunity to attend LA's Best. We are grateful for the mayor and the city's support. But when I think about the remarkable legacy he's achieved, so much of what he's been able to accomplish has been interstitial. Those in-between spaces that are so critical and what literally connects us. On the education front, whether it was taking his idea like the LA College Promise, which was an idea, he made it a reality. When we were in the midst of a strike for our schools, the mayor stepped up and in. And through the mayor's fund and all the other, again, interstitial places where he can make a difference, he has done that. He has left his mark in education in so many powerful ways, both in tone, substance, and in leadership. Please help me welcome my good friend and member of LA's Best family, Mayor Eric Garcetti.
Thank you. Interstitial, smart guy, right? That's our word for the day. Thank you, my dear friend, Alan. Thank you for the friendship spanning over 3 different decades now, the O's and the 10s and the 20s now, and still such a young man. All of us love you. Those who know Alan Arkatov always look forward to time spent with him, and thank you for the kind introduction. And it always feels like coming home when I'm with LA's Best. I'm also kind of coming home because I used to teach it at USC. It was my job just before I went to city council some 21 years ago. I was a teacher on this campus and would come here. And every time I come back to Town and Gown and kind of get a sense of what this campus can be and is and will be, it really fills me with a lot of joy. So thank you to USC for hosting us. And thank you to each one of you for being a part of this family. And I come here not just as mayor, and I should probably go back in the history. I'm Mayor Garcetti, but now inspired by Anderson, you can just call me Garcetti, right? But I know that that City Hall has been really one of the co-parents of LA's Best from the beginning, because it was a former police officer who became a city council member, who became our first black mayor, who co-founded this when he saw a need, Mayor Tom Bradley, for going in an even earlier age, back in the day when people were like thinking, well, maybe in high school you intervene and try to fix what's wrong, and recognizing that if we don't start very early with our youngest Angelinos, that it is a tough thing to kind of put back into the box afterwards. And Tom Bradley has this strange mix. My dad grew up, my dad went here on scholarship, grew up around the corner from USC, son of Mexican immigrant. And that Mexican immigrant, my grandfather, who had a barber shop down the street from here, was once arrested by Tom Bradley when he was a youth. And he gave him a second chance in Boyle Heights. And I've always thought it's so interesting that my predecessor's predecessor did something to my grandfather that allowed me to be here. So when we intervene in people's lives, we recognize we don't know exactly when those ripples of the stone we cast in the water will hit us, but they will. And that's what LA's Best is all about. So that's the history of why it's your obligation, if you're Los Angeles mayor, to be embedded in and invested in LA's Best. In fact, it was that mayor who gave LA's Best a home at City Hall. It's a pretty rare thing for a nonprofit to be nestled in and to live at City Hall, but that's where LA's Best has always had offices because of that commitment. And when Antonio Villaraigosa was first elected, and I think Eli Broad, rest his soul, hadn't supported him and said, what can I do to support you? He said, give money to LA's Best, and that led to an expansion. When I was chair as council member of a committee that oversaw our community development dollars, we expanded LA's Best commitment from the city. And as mayor, I've been proud to be able to expand the number of campuses too. So as an active policymaker, I've tried to grow this family and this opportunity. But I think the most meaningful relationship I have had with LA's Best is as a parent. Amy and I are foster parents, and two of our, well, not just two, we've probably had 4 or 5 of our children have participated in LA's Best programs. And so just those quiet moments where you know as a parent that you have your children connected with folks that will change their lives forever. This program has touched me personally and the children who have been under our care. And this mission, this organization, has never been more necessary than ever. So if you're a funder, thank you. I want to single out Deidre Lind, who heads up the Mayor's Fund for Los Angeles, who has helped in so many ways be a part of this family and expand it. But we live in a very scary moment, a moment in which democracy itself is under attack, when we're trying to teach young people how to get along past differences, when we see so many ugly faces of so many things rearing their heads locally, nationally, internationally. LA's Best runs counter to that. It runs counter to the idea that we have to find those that we are against, but in fact we can find those that bring us together. LA's Best doesn't care where you're from, doesn't care the color of your skin, doesn't care your parents' immigration status or your own. It doesn't care about anything besides the dreams that you have and trying to land those dreams in a safe, secure, nurturing place. And I'm so excited for Anderson's leadership, not only as, you know, a chapter of Los Angeles history that you embody and the connection here. And I see you're with another finely dressed man, not with his cool sneakers, but our new superintendent, who I have to say, unabashedly, I am an Alberto Carvajalo's fan. He is what Los Angeles and LAUSD has needed for so long, and I'm so excited to be serving with him. So I know you're going to be hearing, but give him a round of applause as well. But to build a community program, a district, and a city without borders, that is our mission. That is our mission. To be border crossers and border embracers. To not see those things that divide us, but find the ones that unite us. And as I come to the end of my term as mayor and 21 years serving at City Hall, I was reading from Thucydides the other day, paraphrase from the great General Pericles when he was asked what his legacy is. And I was thinking, well, this is opportune, you know, think about legacy after a couple decades of service. He said, what you leave behind is not what is engraved in stone monuments, but what is woven into the lives of others. We don't care what we've built or how much money we've collected or the titles we've had at the end of our days. We care about how we have changed the lives of others and woven that into their lives in ways they will never know. If you're looking for credit, LA's Best isn't your thing. If you're looking for great titles, LA's Best isn't going to give it to you. But if you're looking for meaning in your life, LA's Best will give you that time and time again. What might seem like simple offerings, a nutritious meal, a safe space to learn, a field to run on, a new activity, a connection to somebody in an industry you've always wondered about as a kid but don't know anybody in. A book to read in peace. These are the building blocks of a bright future, and for you, a happier life as well. And so, at its heart, this is one of the simplest ideas, but one of the most powerful ideas to ever hit Los Angeles, which is to provide after-school opportunities to kids who need them most. The impact couldn't be larger, and the importance couldn't be greater. Last month, I had the immense joy of seeing that play out on this campus. And on a Saturday, and LA's Best always surprises me, I joined with a bunch of LA's Best girls who were with with USC's football team and professional women football players to learn about football. I'm like, only in LA, right? Do we have a bunch of 4th, 5th grade, 6th grade girls? Because there's a huge football movement among girls. Flag football, so let's try to keep the brain trauma down, but a great sport that we always just associate with boys and with men. And to see those role models of some of the greatest female football players, to see the USC football players here, it was just, that's what LA's Best does. And each and every day we're trying to knit those dreams together. I know the city is your partner. In a few years, just, let me get my geography, just across the street, we will welcome for the 3rd time the Olympics and the 1st time the Paralympic Games. I know what that felt like as a 13-year-old when I grew up here in 1984, which tells you now my age. You can do the calculations. 51, I'll save you the math. And how it felt to me like this was the center of the universe. When the Lucas Museum opens up here, and we can see it beautifully laying out, when the space shuttle is upright again with both the main rocket and the boosters at the California Science Center next to the California African American Museum, right next to the Natural History Museum, you will see what this city is all about, planting those dreams in the minds and, more importantly, the hearts of young people. And so I want to thank you for being a part of doing that and listening with your hearts today to those Angelenos that this program has touched. In this city in the last decade, we've cut poverty. I know it's going to surprise you to hear this. Bloomberg Business News just gave us the stats, by 27%. We've said that raising a wage was important, making college universal was important, making sure that every student could ride transit for free was important, making sure that we had the largest savings account for youth program in the country was important. These things that we've done quietly and together, often with the school district, have laid us forward for the success that Los Angeles is poised for. So any day you're feeling down about LA, to paraphrase another politician who I won't name, there's nothing wrong with Los Angeles that can't be fixed by what's right with Los Angeles. You can look up who said that about America. But we know that we have the brilliance here. It's embodied in LA's Best. And I just want to thank you to every angel here in the City of Angels for embodying that, to LA's Best for always inspiring me. And I'll finish with this. Somebody once said in a community meeting a few years ago when I was pushing something forward, they're like, you won't even care. You won't even be mayor 5 years from now. And I looked at them, coldly said, you're right, I won't be mayor. I'll be more dangerous. I'll be a constituent. And so know that I am always an Angeleno. I am always here for LA's Best. It's not the titles we hold, but the love that we pay forward, and count on me to do that alongside you for all my years here in Los Angeles. Thank you so much, and back to you, Alan.
So I would be remiss, and again, thank you, the mayor, and for all of you for coming, if I didn't recognize another new member of the LA's Best, not new, but sort of new, member of the LA's Best family. USC Dornsife Associate Dean Tamara Seabrook Anderson. So you've heard a lot about the name Anderson. This is the original Anderson. She's an exceptional colleague who has received well-deserved acclaim for her trailblazing work with JEP, service learning, and experiential learning programs. Please help me welcome Anderson's mom, Tammy, and give a big round of applause for the woman who shaped Anderson's life and leadership. And if you want to know any stories against him, she can probably fill you in on a few of those. Anderson? I won't get in the middle of mother-son stuff, but again, this is the kind of piece. LA's Best is a family affair. And whether it's the mayor, whether it's the superintendent, whether it's the partnership between the district, the city, the private sector, it takes a village. Eric was talking about all these political sayings from before, but it really does. And so I'm very excited tonight to have you all here together. And we're going to hand it over to Anderson to lead what I think will be a really important discussion. So, Anderson.
Good afternoon. Everyone's been drinking and having water and wine. Good afternoon. So before we get started, I just want to first, before we transition to the panel, I just want to thank you all for being here. I appreciate you. I appreciate your energy and your passion for this work and LA's Best and the city of Los Angeles. But before we move forward, I want to invite a very special guest who is one of our esteemed LA's Best alumni. Please give her a round of applause. Samantha, come on up.
All right. I'm short, everyone. All right. Good evening. My name is Sam, and I am an LA's Best alumni, a title I've proudly held since graduating from elementary school 10 years ago. As a student from grades 3 through 5, I was exposed to a variety of enriching experiences that continue to benefit me into my adult years. This includes participating in clubs such as LA's Best Young Authors Program and Dance Team, which allowed me to explore my long-standing passion for the arts, and perform at events such as LA's Best Annual Community Jam for Peace and Dance and Drill Team Showcase, where my school took third in our division. I was also able to participate in LA's Best Summer of Learning, which granted me the ability to continue receiving quality arts education during a summer where I most likely would have been inside on the computer, and go on field trips to places such as Grand Park in downtown Los Angeles and Discovery Cube. At the time, I was just a kid having fun and unaware of how much LA's Best was truly benefiting my life. But as an adult now interested in pursuing education policy and nonprofit work, I understand that these experiences not only provided me with opportunities I may not have had without LA's Best, but also exposed me to future career possibilities at a young age. I'm now pursuing a degree in communications as well as a minor in child development at Cal State LA, and hope to use my knowledge to one day serve programs such as LA's Best so that I may serve students such as the one I once was. Thank you.
That's leadership. Thank you. Everyone say thank you. All righty, let's move forward with more of these meat and potatoes that we have here. So I'm going to move forward and invite some of our awesome panelists here. Let's see. I'm going to ask if you can sit from this chair over. I'm going to eliminate this chair because I realize it's a little spacey. So first, to my immediate left, LAUSD Superintendent Alberto Carvahlo, please come up. Superintendent Carvahlo has decades of experience in education, and this is his first year as our leader at LAUSD. Deidre Lind, where are you? President and CEO of the Mayor's Fund. She has been instrumental with public and private partnerships in Los Angeles. Pedro Noguera, our distinguished professor of education, Emory Stoops and Joyce King Stoops Dean of the Rossier School of Education. He has published a plethora of documents and publications, both nationally and internationally. And last but not least, where is he? There he is. Dave Travers, president of ZipRecruiter. Dave is a leader in finance and has expertise in tech companies. And thank you for weaving in LA's Best into your model and your operations. So one round of applause for all of our panelists. So, welcome to my living room, since I'm a double alum of USC. So LA's Best started in 1988 with 10 schools, and now due to our public and private partnerships, we now serve about 200 schools. First, I want to speak about how we partner with our LAUSD partner and our leadership there. And fortunately, we have an incredible superintendent who has published the strategic plan for 2022-2026, ensuring Los Angeles students are ready for the world. Everyone say ready for the world. So Superintendent Carvahlo, as the creator of this strategic plan, please kick us off and let us know how we can guide our workforce to support our students so they're ready for the world.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you so much for the invitation to be back here at USC and participate in this important conversation. Number one, I don't mean to correct anybody, but the strategic plan is actually not my strategic plan. It's not drafted or written by me. It's the work product of about 100 days of listening, learning, examining data, really internalizing, analyzing what we detected, and then in a very meaningful and swift way, but very strategic, developing a roadmap for the work to be done over the next 4 years, focusing obviously on specific goals of elevating literacy proficiency, math proficiency, graduation rates, and obviously addressing the social emotional needs that our students currently have. It is rooted in 5 specific pillars. I'm not going to go through the entire plan. It is enabling now over 100 different strategies with specific key performance indicators. As you know, strategic plans usually are drafted for a 5-year implementation. California law does not allow superintendents to have contracts that last more than 4 years, unlike academia. Little plug there. Therefore, we will condense 4 years worth of work, representing 5 years worth of promises. And that is fitting considering the urgency associated with the requirements of our educational institution. I don't need to tell you, yes, graduation rates have improved over time, but they're still lagging. And if you disaggregate the data and look at African American graduation rates, poor Latinos, if you look at students with disabilities, English language learners, children, kids in foster care, or in-house students, then that gap is even wider. Secondly, it is critical for us to recognize that the pandemic has impacted many of our kids. No surprise to anybody that the kids who were in crisis prior to the pandemic were the kids who descended into a deeper level of crisis as a result of the pandemic. And wrapping all of those issues up, obviously, are the issues, the social gaps that we recognize so well that cause the trauma and the stress that are so detrimental, so deleterious to the learning opportunity, the learning capabilities of our students. So that's, in essence, the strategic plan. It cannot be enabled, it cannot be actionable by teachers and principals, school board members, or a superintendent alone. It requires partnership, it requires community, it requires dedication, it requires honesty, it requires truth in addressing the political issues that usually stand as the sacred cows that block the way towards progress. And I'm not going to mention those, but you read about them on the LA Times all the time. And these are not new, they are historic in nature, and we know what they are. We've lived year after year that experience, and somehow we don't muster up enough courage to actually destroy them, or at least push them aside. That is why the work of LA's Best, the contribution of private sector, philanthropy, in partnership with the city of Los Angeles and the school system are so critically important, is that, in fact, a 7-hour and 20-minute opportunity for learning is turning into a day-long, right, effective way of remediating, accelerating, identifying, providing everything your kids need. Secondly, without this presence, the killing hours of urban America, from dismissal until the time that they stop playing video games, would be wasteful, if not deadly. Thirdly, it is the opportunity, the best opportunity to accelerate performance. And then lastly, obviously, forget about the strategic plan, forget about the wishes and the wills that we all have ahead of us. Without this presence, thousands of our kids would be relegated to an inequitable condition. Meaning if you don't have the resources, you don't have access to after-school care, you don't have access to enrichment programs or tutorial programs or accelerating programs. So if we want great communities, yes, we have great museums, great school systems, And then we have this holistic approach to elevating the dignity and the humanity of kids.
Thank you, Superintendent Carvahlo. Deidre?
So I'm supposed to jump in here and respond to our amazing superintendent. As a parent, I have to just say how inspiring it is to hear the superintendent speak about his vision for our school district, because that is a school district that's touching the lives of hundreds of thousands of youth. And it is our future when we think about those youth and the success of those youth. So thank you so much. And when I think about LA's Best and the relationship that LA's Best has with the school district, how critically important it is that those youth who are on school district or on school sites after the school day closes, how the role models that they see in the staff that are LA's Best staff is so important. Just as the teachers that they see in the classroom are critical, the role models that our LA's Best employees serve for those youth every single day. When I've talked to LA's Best students, they often will talk not about the program as a whole, but about an individual employee who has helped them or nurtured them or taught them about yoga. That's what's really important. So when I think about the connection between LA's Best and the school district, I think about those individual employees that are just so important to delivering the programming that we all are here today to support.
Thank you. So let's transition a little bit to the heartbeat of what LA's Best is about. We serve students that are elementary school, 5th grade through 12th grade. They're at that time that it's prime for them to learn what their passions are for our students and our staff. So it's a perfect time for our students to learn before any fears set in. So Pedro, let's talk about why after school. Why is it important, and why now more than ever?
Thanks for the question, Anderson. Great to be with all of you here. Before I answer, when our new superintendent arrived, I said that getting Alberto Carvahlo was equivalent to the Lakers getting LeBron. and people said, really? And I said, really? And so here's LeBron. He may not look like LeBron, but believe me, he can speak with clarity about the work that needs to happen here. And so I'm glad you're here, Alberto. With respect to the question, I think the real issue is that, as the superintendent said, learning doesn't stop when the bell rings, when the school day ends, and it shouldn't stop. But what kids need is not more school, but new learning opportunities that expand their interest and expand their horizons of what's possible. Many kids, it's through an activity like chess or writing poetry or robotics that they start to discover an interest that can lead to a career, that can lead to honing skills that they didn't fully develop in school, and that can lead to new possibilities. And that's what after school does for many kids. It also obviously provides a safe place for kids to be when their parents are still working, but it's much more than that. And when you talk to kids who've had this opportunity, and we heard from one today, right? She's not a kid anymore, but a graduate of LA's Best, about the opportunities that are afforded. What you are really hearing is how the enriched experience of being in a setting where they're challenged, where they're stimulated, and have fun. Wow, what a combination. You know, how often do kids say at the end of the day, wow, what a day, that was so inspiring about school? You know, it should happen sometimes, right? And it certainly should happen after school. And I think that's what LA's Best brings, is the opportunity for discovery, for tapping into that curiosity that kids have naturally, and for discovering some new part of themselves that could hopefully lead to a career, lead to a new interest being honed, and open doors of opportunity for them. So I can't say enough about why this is important for LA. For LA to be a first-class city, and we'll be, hosting the Olympics, you gotta have first-class schools and first-class education for all kids, regardless of the neighborhood they're in. And that's what I think LA's Best begins to deliver.
That was great. I just want to pile on to that to say that I think about our workforce and jobs all day in my day job. And what you just said reminds me of a couple months ago. I was here with some of you actually at an LA's Best site. We did a little freeze dance. We did a little robotics. The kids were inspired, or at least they did a good job of faking it for me. Yeah, exactly. And then the parents showed up at the end, and they had not been worried about where their kids were. They were able to work, and we need them as a society to be capable and focused on that while their kids are being inspired. And that was incredibly important and is incredibly important for society. We need that beyond just the impact on the kids, but also the impact for the parents and for the caregivers. So they feel free to do that and work a job with regular hours. And that's incredibly powerful.
Thank you, Dave and Pedro. So LA's Best, we are entering our 34th year this year. 34 years in service. So ever since Mayor Bradley recognized our partnership, it's been instrumental for our students and in the community, and our support with the mayor's office and the district has been huge and a model for expanded learning, for after school programs, but and in the country, because many folks don't know because we're here in California, but California leads the country when it comes to this work of after school expanded learning. So we give an applause to being here in California. So Deidre is someone who has established and seen firsthand the challenges and successes with public and private partnerships. What do you recommend? What do you see? Share your vision as to what a best practice looks like.
Well, there's an easy answer to that. It's LA's Best. I mean, and I'm not just saying that because the Mayor's Fund, which I lead, which we started almost 8 years ago, we modeled it on LA's Best in many ways. The truth is that the public sector cannot solve these issues alone. The private sector cannot solve our issues alone either. We have to work together. The mayor talked about really looking at cross borders, being collaborative, and that is what LA's Best really is all about. We think about, in the most recent couple of years during the COVID pandemic, where government has been able to infuse more resources into incredibly important community programs like LA's Best. But it has not made it any less important that the private sector also stand up to support programs like LA's Best. Government issues lots of money, and we know this, and I watch it every day, and I have incredibly smart colleagues who work in government to help deliver that money, but it is restrictive money. There are restrictions around how that money can be used. So when LA's Best first was in the middle of the pandemic, when we were all kind of faced in March of 2020, it was the private resources that helped to bridge the services to ensure that LA's Best was pivoting to support those youth in that time of crisis. And those private dollars remain incredibly critical. I see a bunch of you in the audience who are really supportive donors to LA's Best, and I just want to thank you all. There's too many to name here. But your support remains critically important. And so when I hear stories about more public money going into programs like LA's Best, I just always remind folks of the importance of the flexibility of those private resources. And I think you, Superintendent, probably see this as well. The importance of the public-private partnership happens not just at LA's Best, but in all of our bureaucracies that we're working with together.
Thank you. Superintendent Carvahlo, LeBron. So we know that LAUSD knows how to keep teachers employed and educate students and grow a diverse workforce. What are your thoughts on how the private sector can help strengthen our work and give us room to grow and prepare our students and workforce to be ready for the world?
Well, I think it's all about meaningful connections, right? Number one, the dollar must be stretched, but just making a financial investment that no doubt has a terrific impact is not enough. So the private sector brings validation, credibility, also perspective. So if we want to be that world-leading urban center, which I believe we are, but there's still room for improvement, We ought to have a seamless plan from birth to workforce and then beyond. That's what great cities, great communities have, from birth through workforce. But what are we preparing kids for from birth? Well, in this community, I don't need to tell you, not every kid is guaranteed the health screening they need. Not every mom has the skill set they need to guarantee that screening on time or to identify early on some of the challenges that children face. When they enter school, do we want active parents who are actually demand-driven rather than supply-centered? Yes. And sometimes parents don't have that level of information. The private sector actually has a knowledge base and the resources to inform K-12 institutions about the types of programs that will lead not only to graduation on time, but also the pathways towards the entrance into the workforce, whether it is 1-2 years post-high school, 2 years after high school, career technical education, college and university. What are the key industries? What are the key economic sectors that need a ready-to-go workforce after that transition? But equally important, no child will be the adult who will be employed unless they develop the resiliency, the grit, the knowledge base, the self-confidence, the academic competency, the personal competency, the civic competency, and the workplace competency, unless they are offered exposure to programs, as my dear friend Pedro Noguera said, transcend what can be a rather uninteresting day of schooling. Yes, the core is provided, but it is the encore that brings people back. And it is that encore that the private sector informs and funds. Indispensable symbiotic relationship. So the way I see this is, the private sector enables a full day of opportunity for kids who otherwise would be shut out of so much more. And Pedro is right. I've never met a kid who in the morning, after breakfast, rushes out of the house for some more algebra. But they all come back for the violin lesson, for the Chicano music, for the ballet, for the coding, for the things that bring relevance. And if we're smart, we wrap rigor around it in a way that really is meaningful to them. And then that's how you excite learning. And that does not happen without the information, the resource, the validation, the credibility, and the forceful presence of the private sector.
And if I could add to that, Anderson, about the need for this kind of investment in our schools, we see the benefits. Mayor Garcetti talked about the Lucas Museum, which is going up, $1 billion museum, not far from here. We see the benefits in the Dodgers, right? Go Dodgers, in the Rams, right? And maybe even in the Lakers, right? Coming up next year. You go to Sophie Stadium, you see what money can do. It's amazing. I was talking to a real estate agent the other day about Culver City, where I live. And they said, because Culver City's reputation for schools, it actually adds value to every home in the city. People want to move into Culver City just because of the schools. Imagine if that was true in LA, that people wanted to move here because they wanted to get into schools. And because the schools had excellent after-school programs in each one, no matter where you lived. It'd be a very different city. So we need this. The district needs it. This community needs this kind of investment because it's an investment in children and it's an investment in the future of LA.
Round of applause. Dave Travers, as president of ZipRecruiter, and you've woven us into your operations. Yeah. What does a best practice look like in terms of a ZipRecruiter partnership with LA's Best as one model?
Yeah. Well, what really works for us is that our two organizations are so mission aligned. So as much as I and we endorse everything that's been said here, it also just makes sense for us as a business to be so aligned with LA's Best. The reason is it's what I described to our team as a triple win. In addition to the workforce, a parent enablement into the workforce that I mentioned earlier, we're enabling kids to get inspired, get curious so they can learn the skills that don't even exist yet that they'll need to be successful in their own careers. And in addition to that, we have this amazing staff of about 2,000 people who we're also skilling and training into with an incredible set of skills that are inspiring kids today and are going to be leaders tomorrow. And so for that purpose, our mission at ZipRecruiter is we actively connect people to opportunity. And so the way I always describe that to our team, and I just did this to 1,500 of us, is to say what our purpose is really a rectangle. On one side of the rectangle is how much we can impact people's lives. On the other side is how many people we can impact. And it is very easy for us, we're lucky with technology, to be able to impact millions of people's lives. We'll get hired through our company this year. But to make that real and to inspire these 1,500 people who work for us, who could get any job, frankly, and could go work anywhere, to make them feel why that's real, you have to make that tactile and bring it down to the unique single individual. And that's where going and visiting, organizing our teams to go and visit LA's Best, that's where talking about the stories of individual people who've been hired on ZipRecruiter for LA's Best really impacts our team. So we can both think about the macro, but also think about the story I just told, which is to our team, which is I got involved in this organization in 2006 because of an event at another university west of here that I won't name. But we were walking in. I was walking in a busload of kids to an auditorium. And when we walked into Royce Hall, the first kid I met at LA's Best took a huge gasp in, and he said, I didn't know they let kids like me into places like this. And I didn't know then how to put words around the feeling that was like a lightning bolt through my soul when I heard those words. But I do now. That is what it feels like when you connect someone to opportunity, and that's why this is a great organization we're proud to be a part of.
Thank you. So as I transition to close out so we can have a drink and a nibble, I want to just thank our esteemed panelists for your leadership and your wisdom and believing in this work in support of Afterschool for our students and staff. So thank you all. If we could give them applause. So in closing, I'm incredibly honored to serve as president and CEO here at LA's Best. Over 20 years in doing this work, when I first started off, it was, oh, look at all these students. And people say, why are you still working in after school? And I said, well, in 10 years, they're going to be adults. This is changing the world in one generation. I'll probably still be alive. So, but eventually it turned into more than just supporting the students. It turned into supporting our families and giving them the opportunity to work and giving them the opportunity to also learn from our organizations. And then it started to be, I would serve in different school districts, and I said, man, I need to serve more kids. This isn't enough. And then I would have the opportunity to serve on a executive committee in LA County or up in Sacramento. And so, okay, that's more kids. And then I remember once I had an argument with one of our colleagues, a professional argument, of course, as we want our students to. And they said, we want our staff to stay longer. I said, I don't want our staff to stay from 20 to 30 working, these part-time job opportunities where they're still figuring out what their career and their journey is going to be. I said, we need to figure out how we can hire them earlier, how they can be our volunteers in high school and then become our workforce, and then we support them to college and career. And then that person said, oh, yeah, that's kind of true. So, we don't worry about these human resources matters. We think about how we can support our students and our staff. So I look at our students and I look at our staff as equal players when we look at really changing and shaping Los Angeles and taking it to the next level. So I thank you all for being here. Part of the message also here is for folks to understand that LA's Best, it's not just us as an organization, it's together we are LA's Best. We're able to do these things together as we partner together. And some of our partners that we've already worked with, of course, are here. Of course, LAUSD is here. Thank you, MVP Superintendent Carvahlo. GPSN is in the house. I saw one of our great friends and donors. I saw LA84 somewhere around. And if I didn't name you and call you, I know California Afterschool Network is here from Sacramento. But if I can't see you all right now, we'll just blame the light that's in my eye right now. Also, thank you, Mayor Garcetti, for coming in the back. He said, I really want to stay, but I have to take off and pick up my kid, and then I'm going out of town. So we want to thank him and wish him safe travels. Samantha, thank you for being here. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for showing what our program is all about. Alan, thank you for welcoming me back to my living room. Appreciate it. I also want to thank our staff. And these are the folks that get it going, make it happen, maybe put up with my details here and there. But they've welcomed me here as I'm new as a leader here in LA's Best. And I'm excited to continue to partner with all of you. I thank you for all the details, because I know that there's things that you're not going to tell me about that you figured out. And that's what leadership is all about. So thank you. Also want to thank our board here, our board chairs here. Thank you, Damian, for believing in me, and for our board for voting for me to actually be appointed so I could really, people say, hey, how are you doing? I'm living a dream. I really get to work with incredible leaders throughout Los Angeles, and we really get to get some work done to really create change. So thank you all for being here. My staff, immediately after this event, we'll start planning for our next event, which is on October 13th. That everybody loves, our locally grown event with Neil Frazier supports us. So thank you, Neil. So in closing, just thank you all for being here. Again, we'll have a little drink and a nibble, but just together we are LA's Best. So thank you so much. Have a great evening. And thank you again to our panelists. I'll see you soon as we're networking and navigating.